Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar today, hosted by Vistatec and Global RWC. We're very happy to have you here to talk about the value of experts for AI life sciences content. You can see we have a lovely panel here ready to discuss this topic, we are very happy to be here. Thank you for joining us today, all of our live participants, and for your time, everyone who's watching the recording later. So I'm Karen Tkaczyk. I lead business development for our life sciences business unit at Vistatec, let our panelists introduce themselves. Rachel, would you like to go next? Our surprise guest.
Yes, absolutely. Happy to be here. So my name is Rachael Human, and I am the marketing manager here at Global. And I'm stepping in for Em. She sends her regrets. She had a issue with her knee and had been taken out from this webinar. So, but she's here supporting through me. We're very excited. This is a really important conversation, and we are excited to be part of it.
Jeff.
Good day. Thank you, Karen. My name is Jeff Mocny. I'm the Vice President of Regulatory Strategy at Evzema, a global CDMO that offers services in biologics manufacture, as well as conjugate technology manufacture for clients that are pre-clinical all the way through commercialization. So we offer a pretty broad spectrum. My experience myself, I come from a background of immunology. My doctoral training is in immunology. I did a few fellowships along the way. And for the last 10 years of my career, I've really been focused on a regulatory strategy and helping our clients move forward. So thank you for inviting me and being here. Karen, it's wonderful. Rachel, it's great to be here. And Bruno, thank you so much.
Mr. Herrmann.
Hello. Thanks for inviting me as well. Currently, I'm a global consultant in content and product operations. I'm working a lot with the life sciences industry because I have a lot of background in that industry. I've been around for 31 years in different industries, but I spent quite a number of years in the CRO industry. And so, yeah, my focus is definitely on helping those organizations, small, medium-sized, or larger, with their AI infusion. I will explain in a minute why I call it infusion and not deployment. And also, of course, how to maximize the value of both the technology and the human expertise. That's about me.
Very good. So we are going to have Bruno frame the topic for us for a few minutes here, and then we will move into conversation. So over to you, Bruno.
Thank you. So I'm going to share, and I keep my finger crossed that it's going to be visible for you. All right. So yeah, just for this introduction, short one, my perspective will be, of course, on value creation and human expertise in the frameworks of content operations in life sciences, based on my experience. So I don't pretend to be the universal guru on that topic, but of course, I have quite a lot of things that I can share. But just for today, I wanted to focus on a few things which, in my opinion, are quite important, not just for the discussion that we're going to have in a minute, but also in general for people in charge of content and products in one or multiple countries. So that's my goal for today. Well, you know about me now. Probably I should mention that a number of people still know me because I had the pleasure and sometimes the pain of creating the first in-house content, language services and solutions team in the largest CRO in the world. That was during the COVID years, which was even more exciting to do that during that time. And of course, that's when I proved, that's the latest big experience when I proved what me and my team could do. So talking about today, scoping value in AI-enriched frameworks. I think that's really timely for everyone because we all live in, somehow we live in an AI-enriched framework or environment. And just 3 points in this short intro, which I found quite, I would say relevant, but also probably a little bit provocative. For some people, I know that from my experience, so we'll see. The value of experts in content supply chains, in content workflows, and also in content ecosystems where technology meets operations. And as I keep saying now, we are in the age of AI, and if AI can create and replicate almost everything, I insist on almost, humans and value are the real strategy. So I think technology is what it is. It's changing every day. But the real challenge, I think, from my perspective, certainly from an operational perspective, is definitely on the human side and on the value creation side. I think you can read a bunch of articles on different social media about all these projects that failed or that were disappointing. Well, most of the time it's about a lack of human consideration or a lack of value creation. So I decided just for this short introduction to highlight a few myths. I call them myths. You can call them assumptions, if you will, because these are things that some people still believe. They still assume. And the first one is that AI will replace all human jobs. This is not specifically limited to the life sciences industry, but I see and I hear that still very often in that industry too, specifically in the medical device industry and in the biotech industry, more than in the pharmaceutical industry. And obviously, for me, this is a myth because, first of all, we see already that that's not happening. And there is always a balance. That's the story of technology for the past decades. There has always been a balance between automation and augmentation. So automation has been around for many, many years before AI was there. You can go back to the 80s, 90s. And obviously, a number of tasks have been in scope for automation. That is not new. And that's where technology plays out. That's the real challenge of making technology valuable with those tasks, with those activities. Now, in the age of AI, there is another challenge, which is not new either, but which is different from the previous ones, and this new challenge is all around human-led augmentation. This is, of course, where human experts, or humans in general, I would say, they can add value, they can add a number of, I would say, human traits, which I highlighted in the middle of the picture, because of course we can talk about how to elevate and how to elevate human expertise and how to embrace change, but there is a human edge that is still around and that is still at the center. So I don't use it at I think many people use humans in the loop. I use humans at the core or humans in the center, because you have the human edge, which is, as far as I'm concerned, very much based on accountability, nuance, and judgment, which is critical in many of these, I would say, transformed activities. And we can see that in content creation, in content translation. So there are a number of tasks that are, of course, impacted by automation, but humans are still around. They are displaced. They are sometimes, put in a different seat, I would say, but still it's there. So that is the first myth, which has to be, in my experience, questioned and also explained why, of course, things are different in reality and not in some happy talk from some big or large language models. The second myth is that quality is the ultimate goal. I cannot count the number of conferences, debates, sessions around quality. I agree quality is important, but this is the beginning of the journey from my perspective, the beginning of the journey to trust. Why is that so? Because quality in many cases is to make things right and to make sure that content and products are correct. They are accurate, relevant, fluent, etc., etc. So it's most of all to be in line and to be compliant with the SOPs that many organizations have to consider. However, that's my personal perspective, and well, it's shared. It's not just me, but obviously that quality is the first step. It has to be, of course, added to effectiveness, which is when content and products resonate with people, with the practitioners, with the patients, with the companies. So I keep saying content as a job to do. I know it may sound a little bit funny to say that. I'm not trying to personalize content here, but when I say content has a job to do, it's that every piece of content has to create an impact, has to be, commercial, it has to be informative, it has to be educational. And obviously, this is where we can see the intent that is in the content. And then, of course, if effectiveness is there, everybody can link the value more effectively and more easily, because quality is so subjective. Sometimes it is so vague in a number of discussions that I'm listening to, or that I joined a few conversations in the past. And obviously, what really matters at the end is the value that is created by technology, by people, and by the balance between both. So the outcome is important. But of course, when we talk about trust, which is from my perspective, ultimate value in the life science industry, trust for patients, trust for practitioners, trust for everyone that is involved in an industry, it is really important to avoid being stuck or sort of worshipping quality as the ultimate goal. This is personally something I always recommend to at least discuss. And most of all, some people are, I wouldn't say trapped in quality, but it's because quality is, as I said, is defined in different ways. And somebody told me recently that for him, the difference between quality and effectiveness, it was like the difference between a car in a showroom and a car on the road. This is actually, you can see a car is effective when you drive it, not when it's a showroom. Myth number 3, it's that value is happening at the delivery end only. That's something that I hear quite often, that people consider that value is really what's at the very, very end of the supply chain, or what I call the value chain. But the reality, and this is based on many, many years of different projects and different organizations, that if we analyze it a bit further, if we want to be fair with everyone, value doesn't start or is not just visible at the very end of the chain. It starts with all people contributing to the value: translators, medical writers, data scientists. Well, I'm not going to go through the whole list. And then all these contributions are put together to create the value in different forms. It can be a med device, it can be a treatment, and so on and so forth. And then value is realized when actually people are, as I said before, they are experiencing what they get. It's very important for patients and doctors, because obviously everything that they receive has to be, creating that experience, physical or mental experience, that is so important. And then finally, of course, there is the value analysis. And this is very important because value is not, I would say, doesn't have one facet only. It has a number of different facets, just like in other industries, but the facets in the life sciences industry are typically related to scientific, commercial, experiential metrics, and of course, vanity metrics, which are more production and productive metrics. So that's something that I used many times in strategic plans to make sure that there is a real consideration for the whole value process, and not just value as a sort of checkpoint at the end of a program or at the end of a delivery. And yes, of course, it's happening there as well, but it starts way before that. the medical writers, and so on. But the reality is more, I wouldn't say more complex, but it's broader than just a few groups of people or a few people doing the job to create value. I just listed here a few examples which come up more often than not in the programs that I've been involved in or I've led myself, starting from the workflow engineers, which are more important now than ever before, considering AI is impacting or is infused in a number of workflows, either to accelerate or to amplify, to have more capacity, etc. But of course, there are a number of other roles like knowledge managers, language experts, and domain experts. I see those people collaborating more than ever now, because it's absolutely necessary in an industry like life sciences to combine the expertise both from a linguistic and from a domain perspective. I think in the past, sometimes these people were a little bit separate, so they were not really connected. They were more or less in the same framework, but they were not always maximizing their mutual value. And of course, this is something that is also changing. So this is just to say that humans are still there. They are definitely in the picture because they supervise AI, they use AI, they infuse AI. So it's absolutely not, again, as I said before, it's not a matter of, do we need humans to create value or not? The question is really how and where are those people going to create value? And of course, at the end of the chain, there are the requirements, the expectations of the audiences being the doctors, the patients, the sponsors in pharmaceutical industry, et cetera, et cetera. So this is the picture that I tend to use whenever there are some assumptions that are made which are too restrictive or too limited in the way people consider value creation and human expertise in that picture. Myth number 5, this is when AI is plugged to fix workflows. I love this one because it's absolutely wrong. First of all, it shouldn't be plugged, it should be infused, which means that it should be integrated, but not integrated blindly. It should be really infused in the extent that is really needed. So it can be, lightly integrated, it can be heavily, deeply infused. So that's why I like the word infusion, and I keep using the analogy with tea bag. When you want to have some light tea, you just keep the tea bag in your mug for 10 seconds. If you want to have some strong tea, you keep it in 2 minutes. But with AI, it's the same thing. If I can put it like that, it's to say, yes, in some cases, AI has to be infused heavily, sometimes lightly, because the value has to be there. If there is a big push to infuse AI and there is little value created as the output, then of course it's not going to be great. But the reality also in the life sciences industry is that there are still workflows, and I put here some very simplified pictures just for the discussion, that obviously that are still based on files like PDFs. Yes, PDFs have not disappeared yet, or other types of files. We still need OCR softwares, etc. But these workflows in a number of organizations are now living together with AI-powered workflows, which are different. And that's why it's not just a matter of plugging AI to what is existing. No, most of the time it's redesigning, at the very least. It's redesigning the workflows, but also to create some new workflows that are probably more appropriate and more enabled to, for instance, to manage data. Because in AI, everything starts and ends with data. Data is everywhere. Many people have been used to managing content in files for many years, and still the case, as I said, but that doesn't take away the fact that obviously there is also the need to create and have other workflows to create more value. Again, that's and make sure that humans are still in the loop, as I said before, in different seats, not just not so much in repetitive seats, but in more strategic or more value-adding seats. And that's it for my short introduction. Back to you, Karen.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, Bruno. You've got my thoughts processing. To our audience, feel free to add your questions. We'll address them throughout or towards the end. So please don't hesitate to contribute there. Well, Jeff, then Rachel, perhaps any thoughts, your immediate thoughts on on what Bruno's put to us?
Bruno, thank you very much for that introduction. I do appreciate you framing out a common problem from the perspective that you have, right? And as I mentioned, I'm in regulatory and strategy, right? And I can really, my view is centric and skewed to regulatory materials, technical and product documentation, right? And I really have been working with bringing on AI solutions to our company, Evzema. And the question is, how do we do this appropriately? One, and what is the right tools for the right job? And I say tools because, I think we all agree that AI is a tool that can be used, right? And regrettably, when the only tool you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And, we have to really appreciate that thinking. And your thought of, human in the loop is absolutely critical to me. From the regulatory perspective, regulators have already said humans in the loop are absolutely necessary to be able to leverage the power of AI. 100% agree with this. Now, where I start to think and I start to go is when we talk about the value chain, right? And my mind starts to move in that direction. And my first knee-jerk reaction when we started talking about quality and thinking of it, and I'm curious about this, and this is only my view. I'm curious if there's a misconception about what quality really means, right, to folks and value. I believe quality is a flexible term, right? We all have our own definition of quality. We have our own definition of value. And to me, value from the regulatory perspective equals quality. And the reason the reason I would suggest this from my perspective is that regulatory is about the guidances, the requirements, the must-haves, the necessities in a pharmaceutical or biological program, or even cell and gene therapy development programs that result in the culmination of a product designed to satisfy and serve an unmet medical need, right? Okay, great. Quality to me is that thinking of, well, all those guidances tell you how to do what you must do, but it doesn't tell you how to do it. And when I look at this and I think of quality becomes the interpretation of those guidances in practice. And the proof becomes in the putting of the data that we utilize the AI to harness and make sense out of for us and organize or be manipulated, interpreted, etc., in the way that suits our need, right? So I look at value as being quality because from my perspective, accuracy is critical, right? I do not so much if we're right or wrong in what we did, but are we accurately presenting what was done? Because that is at the key of the regulatory activities, in my view. And you need the human in the loop. And I look at this as value is assigned by its quality, which is interpreted as being quality, meeting that standard of quality or not. And that's how we assign that tool's value, right? Going back to the thinking about every tool has to be right for the job. But that's where my mind goes when I first think of it. And there are loads of strategies out there and loads of AI solutions that are available. And Rachel, I know that you guys have a wonderful tool that has been developed and it has a purpose. And I think that tool plays very well into this regulatory and quality space.
Yeah. So Rachel, please tell us more and tell us perhaps some thoughts on what Bruno said is also.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you all for setting up such a great combo and digging into these details. And we're very aligned in terms of how we view the role of AI in our industry and how to integrate it, that it is a tool that can enhance the work that we're doing. It's not a replacement for the work that we do. And that's very much our approach here at Global. And to give a little background, Global started in 2014. Stevens, our amazing CEO, started this company after a career as a medical writer. So really started from that expertise standpoint, and gathering a strong team of experts to provide that regulatory support, like writing and consulting to biopharma and medical devices. And that's what we've been doing. And as AI has moved into the picture frame, looking at how to integrate that into the workflow. And Global has always been different, really built on the philosophy of developing outside the box approaches. So making sure that our team is enabled to have a work-life balance while still providing really high quality level of service. And at first it was really, an experiment as started the company and got off the ground, and those first teams started working. And it's been successful. We're so excited to still be here over a decade later. And it's always been human first in our philosophy. It's something that saw on the horizon, and has an interest in technology and has worked with. And so saw it coming and knew the potential for it, knew the challenges that could potentially be coming with that. So instead of burying our heads in the sand or trying to ignore it or think that it would just kind of come and go as a fad, it's more how can this be part of a solution? How can we make this tool something that we want and that actually works within our workflows, like Bruno was speaking to, that can be integrated alongside our expertise. And so we developed something called RegWriter AI. We worked with Moderna to help develop this. And it's a human first architecture in this space. So we know how important it is to not automate, right, first drafts and then engage with the experts, but to keep the experts at the center from the get-go. So when we're looking at how to utilize AI and how to bring it in, what we decided with RegWriter and how we approached it was to do a graph neural network GNN engine, versus, lots of tools or an LLM. So looking through that and thinking, how can we keep the expertise at the center of it, keep the human at the center of it? And we purposely chose to build a tool that keeps the expert at the center, prioritizing AI assisting versus AI automation. Which is an important nuance, right? There's a real difference in how that looks and feels to the user of the tool, to the writers, to the experts, and to the output at the end of the deliverables. So GNN acts like your company's AI brain. It's trained on the products, on the data, on your templates, on the processes. So it's really taking that foundational work and integrating it. And it predicts what data the writer will need as they're writing, placing it at their fingertips. So it's about creating more accuracy and more speed and making tools that, create efficiency, right? By keeping that accuracy at the forefront and keeping the experts at the center. So it's about increasing capacity, removing, the process of that searching and copying and pasting, handling the formatting, kind of those little things that can eat up a lot of time so that the expert can be more focused on, the deliverable and creating that really solid product at the end of the day. So RegWriter takes a different approach to using AI in content creation. It's along with what we've been talking about, Jeff and Bruno. It's increasing productivity for our subject matter experts. It's ensuring that accuracy and making sure that quality is really at the forefront.
And that's, Jeff, am I right that you that's how you got to know Global, because you're investigating that as a solution for some of your needs?
Yes, we are investigating that, particularly for the preparation of regulatory filing materials. IND, IMPD, BLA, leaflets to help support our clients. Now, being manufacturers working with DS, our experience and our touch in this area is sort of limited, right? We're working on what we can provide for our clients based on what we've done for our clients, and that's the issue. It's a very challenging role in regulatory writing. We spend a lot of time drafting these leaflets. If we were to go back the old-fashioned way, we have template documents, then we go search for the information that we need to fill this leaflet out. Utilizing ICH M4Q is the guidance, right, that we rely upon. This is what goes where and how it should look to make sense. There's the written part, and then going back to the quality thinking of, well, how do we do that with the information we have, and how do we amend that? And this is a tool that Rachel's and her colleagues have developed that's helpful in this regard. And but one of the things that we think about is, ICH M4Q is evolving. As a matter of fact, ICH put out draft guides to R2 that will change the way that regulatory filings are developed in the future. It's been already commented, it's been out, it's looked at, and they've really changed that granularity and how data is presented. So I think, one of the undertones in my thinking as a consumer of AI materials, of AI products and AI tools, is the ability to adapt and change with the landscape, right? And the question has always been, and Bruno, your experience with your clients, they may be asking the same things I am, is how do we have these tools, how do these tools evolve with the needs that change, the folks that are using them, number one. And number two, how do we continue to introduce that element of quality into the work? And again, quality is a broad term of how does it meet the need for the implementation of the tool in the future? And this is something we look at, right, all the time. And in my role, being VP of regulatory, I'm thinking about how I employ these tools in our workflows or infuse them into the workflows, because I agree, this is not designed to be a fix. This is going to help you fix. It's going to help you fix your process so that is laid out appropriately, one. And two, does it really meet the need that we're trying to address? And that will change with the business. So that's the question I have, which is a bit of a philosophical question for everyone, is how do these tools evolve with the landscape? Or do we need new tools? Can we make old dogs do new tricks? What does that look like from our thinking from a broader scale? Bruno,
Yeah.
Rachel,
Bruno,
both of you
tell
guys
us.
jump in.
Yeah, sure. Well, my perspective, and I may be wrong because things are moving so fast and moving so sideways sometimes. I would say that tools are, at this point in time, most tools are good. It's what is really failing is how they are used and who is using that. That is the main issue. So in some cases, I believe we will need some new tools, but what we will need first in terms of evolution or transformation is to change the ways of working and the ways of thinking. That is really what is most urgent from my perspective. Well, not just my perspective, but from the clients that I have and the organizations I'm talking to. There is this, it's not really an urgency, but they see that things are moving really fast with AI, faster than ever before. And that's why I was saying in one of my slides that typically when I start working with those people, I say, I understand you need to keep working with your existing workflows, which might be based on, creating PDF files and translating them, etc. Because that's, of course, something that needs to stay because that's creating value. It's very important. To your point, Jeff, it's already, something that is value creating today. So we don't have to put that at risk. It's another balance between automation and augmentation. But the other balance that I see is regarding the tools. Okay, we agree that some workflows should not be immediately impacted by the AI tools, and certainly not as a plug or as a fix, as a tool, but no plug, no fix, please. When there is a decision actually to infuse AI in other workflows, or to actually design some new workflows to make sure that AI is maximized as an investment, because of course there is a total cost of ownership. I know it's not a topic for today, but it plays out in many discussions, is, okay, what do we need to do to make sure that in this workflow, there are a number of tasks, might be complex, simple, doesn't matter, but where do we really want to use these tools in combination with humans, not just to keep humans in the center, but again, to to avoid being so naive or blind when it comes to what, the outcome. And, in those discussions, I've seen many people, stakeholders in general. I'm not talking about the patients here. I'm talking really about the stakeholders in sponsors or I would say life science companies. They start by thinking about the workflow, mostly from, I would say, from an internal perspective about operations, how we are going to operate for this, how we're going to operate for that, etc. I usually tell them, you can do that, but if I were you, I would start by the outcome to talk about the workflows. What is the outcome? What is the value that needs to be created? And then you can infuse, you can create your workflow, you can change your workflow by maintaining the effectiveness in each task. So that if a tool is used for something, for a task of creation, authoring, or if it's used for a task of translation, for instance, this AI tool is going, at the very least, maintain the level of effectiveness that's going to lead to value creation. And of course, ideally, it should not just maintain the level of effectiveness, it should increase the level of effectiveness by, like Rachel mentioned, enabling people to spend more time on value-adding tasks and not, wasting time on things that could be really automated or at least semi-automated. So that's one thing. But I would like also to circle back on what Jeff said about, what quality is for him. I agree with you, Jeff. I met two groups of people every day, more or less. I meet people who are really struggling, and they're struggling not, of course, with value creation, but also struggling with value consideration and measurement. They are saying, it's a big challenge because in our organization, everybody is looking at value creation or quality. They don't even use value creation, they use quality from different perspectives. And they say, well, everybody's right, but everybody's looking at quality from a vertical perspective, and nobody or very few people in the organization have this, what I call the value chain, which is the big picture, the umbrella, if you will, where, we can see who is actually contributing to the value, etc. And the other group of people are the people just like you. They have a great definition of quality, which includes, effectiveness, as I discriminated it in my slide. The reason why I discriminate it is because, those people are using quality in the right way, but they are not understood by other people by what they mean with quality, with what they mean by quality. So they say, yes, quality is value, equals value, because what I'm working on, what I'm creating as an output is also an outcome. It is also creating value by definition, by nature, but other people don't see that. So they change their terminology, and that's why some people talk about, content quality or product quality, and other people, like, that's more my sort of way of thinking. They talk about, content effectiveness or product effectiveness, because effectiveness says more than quality, which, not for you, Jeff, I understand you have a very accurate and very sort of focused definition of quality. But so many people are talking about quality, as I said, when they talk about what is a great car? What is the car? Why is this car quality? Is it because it's nice in the showroom, or is it because it's great when you drive it? And for me, it has to be great when you drive it. So that's where quality for a number of people stops at their vanity level and say, quality for me, it's, I'm a medical writer, I'm a translator, and Karen, probably you met people like that as well. But they will say, translators will say, or writers will say, oh, I did a great job because my content is correct. There is no mistake. But is it really effective and value creating? it's contributing to the value, but the whole value is not created yet because the content that those people have created or translated is still not framed, or it's not integrated in a product or in a solution. That's why I use this value chain picture for people who are struggling.
Yeah.
And I agree for you, Jeff, of course, you are more mature and more sophisticated than the number of people that I know. That's it.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you, Bruno. That's very nice of you to say. You know what this reminds me of? A lot of this really drives at, and again, from my perspective, regulatory, thinking that regard. What we're what you're describing to me sounds a lot like what our groups and what I've advised all of our clients, and I'll advise anybody who's developing, pharmaceutical materials, is to start with a target product profile that defines these type of metrics, which you're describing here, right? What does good look like? Then, and I say early phase development folks, we work with folks that kind of balk at that concept. We don't want to define this early. We don't know enough yet. You don't know enough, but you do. You know a lot about this that you're coming to us, or lest you wouldn't be speaking to a CDMO to manufacture something. You know what you have and what you want to work with. So let's define what good looks like. And as we translate this to the broader discussion, what this tells me is that the end user needs to define what success looks like from this process, number one. And number two, another tool we use in development is an analytical target profile, right? We use metrics and data to evaluate this molecule or this product in terms of an analytical perspective so that you can assign its performance to that to determine whether or not this meets the profile that you're trying to manufacture. So extending your argument beyond this, what you're also saying is that you not only do you have to define what success looks like, you have to define what success of the metric you're using to define that success looks like, right? Is this a reasonable or an appropriate element to consider that applies to its value? And I appreciate this because this is something that plagues us all the time. What is it good or not? Well, you tell me. This is where we end up at and becomes circular. So clarity and definition of success is critical, whether it be for inputs, outputs, or tools. And that's, I think, really at the core of what I'm hearing you say. And it resonates with me, Bruno. I think we were of like, thank you.
Thank you. Rachel, you want to add anything at this point?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, I think this conversation is, from our standpoint, is so relevant and so timely. And, talking about tools and the purpose, I'm a weekend warrior DIY person, so I love a tool. And it makes such a difference, in any project you're doing in that DIY space, right? If you have the right tool, the project goes smoothly, the outcome is great, it's what you were expecting, it's more or less on time. If you don't have the right tool or you're using the wrong tool for the situation, it can turn from a fun weekend warrior project to a total nightmare. And I think the same thing is happening in the AI space when we're talking about how to utilize these tools, how to integrate them, and qualifying what does success really look like Bruno and Jeff has spoken to. And so we're actually really focused on the accuracy standpoint of that. What does quality look like? Well, we need accuracy in our industry. And we're actually publishing a white paper in the coming weeks that proposes a really clear definition of what accuracy looks like when it comes to measuring these AI tools. And we're excited about that. So hope it leads to a really good conversation more on that for sure. But when we're looking at these tools, there's a lot of conversation about efficiency because I think that's where there's a lot of big wins and a lot of success if people look to that. But efficiency without accuracy, that's that nightmare scenario where you thought you were going to get your bathroom updated in a few hours and now it's been 2 weeks and you still don't have running water. So that's something we need to dig into and really have at the forefront of the conversation. And we define accuracy as twofold. So first, the data is correct, right? And that the data came from the right single source of truth. So this is something that LLMs struggle with a bit. They take an approach where if you ask, where did this data come from in this particular sentence or paragraph, it can come back and say 55% came from this document, another 24% from this document, 11 from here. And it's just, that's, from our perspective, that's not accuracy. Every data point needs to be linked, back to that ground source of truth so that it's traceable. So RGNN understands the context of data, and it learns as you write, which is so really amazing, I think, from a writer's perspective. As soon as you map or link a data point from its source, it remembers that context of the data point. So it's able to find that data point when given new sources and different sources and keep everything clear and keep everything traceable. It's also able to predict the data as we write out or populate tables using that sense and that source of data. It's different from an LLM where months are spent building a single template that is then packed with prompts for structured data. What happens when 90% of the content we create uses this unstructured data? That's the question that we're really looking at and answering.
Thank you. I have a comment, and then I have a question for Jeff and Bruno. So, I mean, everything I'm hearing is about that key tension, balancing efficiency and speed with quality and trust, right? We're always in that key tension, aren't we? So, Jeff, may I assume, or would you like to correct me if this is a false assumption, that your goal in doing this is to save time and money? That's the goal. Is it about saving time and money, or are there other goals, outcomes that people are looking for in your company? And then once you've answered, perhaps the same question to Bruno, who's consulted for a number of different companies.
Well, Karen, thank you for asking me that question. This is something I wrestle with myself every single day in my thinking. There's a bit to unpack there because I look at this through several layers and lenses. And first, I have the internal requirements and necessities that being a business, we offer a service. It needs to be profitable, and we need to be able to deliver a high quality product, if it were, to our clients that we're serving. Their needs are in alignment with ours in that the content we develop has to be accurate, it has to be correct. It needs to be developed quickly as well, because usually these writing activities, for example, it seems to be a mad rush at the end. Right? We want to avoid that as much as possible. And a lot of that has to do with QCing of data and evaluation of source value, et cetera. There's a laundry list. So I have two sets of needs that are not mutually exclusive and are also complementary to each other, but also kind of at odds. First and foremost, when I look at this through the corporate lens, I want something fast and effective, because writing regulatory dossiers takes a long time. It's very time consuming on my end and working with other folks that I work with. It takes a lot of time. There are other things that we would like to spend our time with dealing with. So fast is necessary for us. It also needs to be cost effective, right? Knowing that these tools have a lifetime. They have a shelf life, so to speak, right? They will be effective for a given amount of time, at which point there will be a new tool that will replace it, or requirements will change, as we've talked about already, and strategy for data submission to the regulated bodies will also change, right? Moving towards a structured data type of function. So that's something I deal with. On the converse side, when I look at this from the perspective of our client, accuracy is absolutely critical for our clients, because it's a single source of truth and traceability. So the solutions that Rachel and her colleagues have developed will help us do that, right? And so when our clients win, from my perspective, when our clients win and are successful, we are also successful. And that's how we judge this moving forward. But I also take it day by day. Today we're successful. What is tomorrow going to bring? Continue to support those goals that we have internally to deliver on the things that our clients need from us. So that's my perspective in that regard.
Thank you. Very helpful.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you very much. Bruno, a few, but perhaps a short version, because we have two great questions from the audience that we should make time for.
Absolutely. I'll keep it short. So there are two things that AI does well and where AI can beat humans. It's capacity and speed. These are two things from a high level perspective. So the question is, how do we infuse AI and where do we do that to make sure that we can benefit from one of these two things, speed and capacity? And of course, I do agree with Jeff that at all times, it is necessary to maintain three things in content creation and translation. It is accuracy, I totally agree, relevance, and trustworthiness. These are the three basic requirements that I have all the time, and these are making sense. But I can give you a quick example where sometimes value is more than just money. Money is important, of course. So cost effectiveness, I agree, time effectiveness. So it's also the patient experience, how patients are going to experience the content that is produced, whether it's an ICF, can be very basic ICF, or if it's something more related to the clinical trial process. But, in several organizations I worked with, people who had to change their workflows based on or according to the EU CTR guideline. EU CTR is, of course, something typical European, where there are high expectations, but sometimes difficult to understand how we can get there. So my main objective was to make sure that I could work with the stakeholders and people who are in the chain of content creation, specifically for regulatory submissions, so that they could cut the total life cycle from 5 days to 3 days. And of course, the immediate solution was, we're going to skip some reviews at the local level. But you cannot do that. You need to have some local reviews in the countries where, regulatory authorities are going to be involved. So I said, let's look at where, AI to coordinate and also to, I would say, evaluate the trustworthiness, the relevance, and the accuracy could chime in so that, yes, countries would have 1 day instead of 2 to make their review. And this is where capacity and speed from AI was really playing a nice role, a value-adding role. But you see, that's just one example of the value facets that it can create. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Am I muted? No, I'm not. Very good. All right, so let's tackle a couple of audience questions. Do we think that there should be even more of a push for AI to be included faster in content development and translation, or are companies jumping into it too fast and might be better to go slower to make sure it matches the quality need for the regulatory side of things that Jeff discussed? So do we have any general opinions on how buyers are behaving and how people are asking? Rachel, Bruno, either of you want to take that one?
I'm happy to
go ahead
to share. Well, there is no single answer to that. I mean, it really depends on the organization, it depends on the goal, it depends on the sub industry, if it's medical devices or pharmaceuticals. But what I would say is that before talking about is there a need for a bigger push, I think what some organizations tend to forget or underestimate is are we aware of AI? Are we ready for AI? Because what they are looking for is AI effectiveness. So the value of AI, that's the value that AI is going to bring. But before that, they tend to forget to ask themselves, are we aware of what AI is? Do we understand AI?
Yeah.
Or
AI governance, perhaps,
AI governance,
right?
Or is our organization ready for AI? Do we have the right data? Do we have the right ecosystem in place before we even talk about, buying a model or creating a model for our own? So there is this, sometimes it's a bit of a rush, which is to immediately go to where, we need to demonstrate the whole value of AI. I think there has to be some quick wins before the big value. And, there has to be more focused on AI awareness and AI readiness. That is what I'm working a lot on right now with organizations, because they are so obsessed by their roadmap about implementing and adopting AI. They forget to ask simple questions. Can we do it? And if we can, how we do it?
Thank you. Anyone else want to chip in on that?
Yeah, I'd add in, we agree and we think that there definitely is a push and a rush to add these tools. And part of that is just the nature of business, right? You got to keep pushing and driving ahead, so you don't get left behind. And also, we think that there's an opportunity to pump the brakes a little and be really smart about how this is implemented. We need to decide as an industry, what is the greatest value to us? Is it the subject matter expert at the center, or is it AI at the center? Will we champion accuracy and quality as a key measure of regulatory writing tools? And are we willing to pay for that accuracy? When rubber hits the road and we realize the shortcomings of some of these tools, will we demand that accuracy first and foremost? And we hope yes. We think there's a lot of value in that. We want the industry to demand that accuracy and quality from the tools that tech is making. And we need to have a louder voice informing tech what we need for our industry, right? Our subject matter experts know exactly how these tools can be implemented and where there is space to create that efficiency. And so giving that feedback and being really loud about that, we think is really important. And we would also say that it's if you're implementing these tools, it's worth taking some time to find which tool is the right one for your team. So maybe doing a pilot with, 2 tools or 3 if possible, determining what works best for your team. Set up those clear outcomes that measure efficiency and quality and accuracy so that you can really know the tool's strengths and weaknesses and make the right choice. So we're not rushing into a choice that a year or 2 later, now we've got to walk back and clean up a mess and do something different.
Very good. Thank you. And the next question is, do we think stakeholders apply different standards to AI in content development and in translation? My impression is that AI-assisted content development is being treated with more caution, while AI translation is readily accepted. Could this be because translation is still too often perceived as a mechanical step rather than a form of expert medical communication? Well, I have lots to say on that, but let's start with Bruno.
Well, to keep it short, because I'm sure Jeff has something to do about that as well, something to say about it as well. But I would say that indeed, I've seen in some organizations that both content creators, let's say the writers, the authors, and translators, the linguist, terminologists, were not really working together. And that's why, I see a value of creating also a supply chain and a value chain when there is none. Because some organizations, they have bits and pieces a bit everywhere. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But indeed, talking about standards, I think that sometimes writers have a misconception about, what the translation process is, regarding the content they create. They think your point is absolutely right, Karen. I think there is an assumption that translation will be very mechanical, if not robotic, and that of course, it will be just a matter of, if I'm a writer, I'm spending 2 days creating some content, it will be just a few hours for translator. No, there is a whole translation process that needs to be applied. There are ISO standards for that reason, by the way. But also, I think that this is really another opportunity for the language professionals, so writers and translators working together, more just to understand each other, but also to work more effectively in a supply chain and not believe that the next guy is going to be faster than me.
Thank you. Well, I won't speak to that because we need to come to closing thoughts from all 3 of you, please, and wrap up our hour. We have zipped through our time, and hasn't it been a good conversation? Rachel, would you like to go first?
Sure. Yeah, I think, from us, it's just this is an exciting time with, new tools, new technology. It's always a great opportunity. The future is bright in terms of how we can integrate this and take our teams to the next level with them. So it's just about being smart about it, being open to these ideas, and to really, again, just putting at the forefront that accuracy is integral, that in our industry, we need to really stand behind that and support our writers, support our teams, to make sure that any decisions we're making to push us into this new world with AI is bringing, that accuracy and quality with us that is integral to who we are as an industry.
Thank you, Rachel. Bruno?
Yeah, well, I agree. It's an exciting time, very exciting. I'm not one of these people being afraid or being overexcited about AI. I think I just have to be balanced, just like what I'm preaching for, balance. But I would say that there is definitely if we just talk about content creation, translation, but content operations in general, I think there is definitely an opportunity to leverage, to infuse AI to leverage that capacity and that speed that AI has. It's amazing sometimes, but at the same time, we have to maintain accuracy, trustworthiness, and relevance. Because if we go faster without the needed level of accuracy or trustworthiness, then speed will do nothing. So it will be useless. It will be a waste.
Thank you, Bruno. Jeff.
So the thing I love the implementation of AI into workflows as well as business activities. I work very diligently every day to include AI where appropriate in the work that I do. And I appreciate it as a tool that is a time saver as well. And the quality of the output or the accuracy of the output is something that I wrestle and I look to be sure of. So I utilize some old-fashioned techniques to verify the information that AI gives me with regularity, and it's an important part of my work as a consumer as well as someone who is utilizing this for a purpose to accomplish a business goal. It's something I think of all the time. Where I'm certainly not a skeptic of it. I'm certainly not like Bruno. I would take the thinking that I'm neither excited nor scared about the implementation of AI. I'm a cautious user of the techniques and the technology that exists. I'm curious. What drives my thinking is how these models will change with time. For example, LLMs came out a few years back, and everybody jumped onto that. Just 6 months ago, I hadn't heard about anything, or actually a year ago is when I started to hear about agentic AI thinking. So the strategies have evolved since its inception. I'm curious how these strategies, as they continue to evolve in these models and thinking, will adopt those approaches and how that will affect my work later. Like everyone else, I don't want to be the first guy through the wall. I want to be the second guy, not the first second guy. So as a consumer, I'm always thoughtful about how the techniques and technologies will change with time and how it will continue to serve the needs that I would like to use it for and its implementation and infusion into my work. And that's the challenge I would give Bruno and Rachel as being a consumer of these type of things, not developers nor governors of that activity. How will that shape your work in the future?
Thank you very much. So my human expertise is becoming more valuable, not less valuable in the world of AI. And the question is not whether change will happen, it's how we will respond to that change, right? So on that note, to respect everybody's time, let us wrap up this conversation, but perhaps we can do it again in a couple of years, see what's changed. Thank you all very much for joining us today. It has been our pleasure, Global RWC's pleasure and Vistatec's pleasure to host this webinar, and we thank you for participating with us.